Hello everyone and welcome back to the Retro Recall. I hope you're doing awesome. Today we have 4 more systems on the bench that were given to me for $10. That's right, for $10 I was giving these 4 systems. Not sure if they work, not sure what they are, but I wasn't really too keen on getting them, to be honest with you, until I saw the N series sticker on here. I didn't know what N series meant. I thought that was pretty cool. Not to mention, you never know what you can find in these systems. I said, for 10 bucks, go ahead, we'll load them in the vehicle and go from there. So you know what? We have lots to go over today, so let's get right to it. Welcome back. Okay, we have system number 1. So we're going to see outside of these 4 systems how many we can actually get posting. I have Knoppix here on a CD, on a live CD, so I'm going to see if I can get these systems going or not. So, again, as I was mentioning earlier, I have never seen an N series sticker on a desktop computer before. It just wasn't something that I had been exposed to, not something that I ever needed. So N series, from what I understand, is a licensing agreement where a manufacturer, in this case Dell, wouldn't preload Windows on this computer for shipping. So what they would do is they would actually ship it out via a FreeDOS system, or I think it was Ubuntu was the other OS that they used, a Linux distro, and that was it. But I mean, from what I read online, people were very upset about this because they didn't get any sort of discounting as a result of it. If anything, it was the same or slightly different price point, but it was never less. So in this case, we have an N series system, a Dell OptiPlex XE. And so it can be in either form factor. There's rubber feet on the bottom and there's some on the side here. So you can have it up in the upright position, such like that. So, I mean, I have it in this form factor just for the sake of the video, but again, you could use it in either way. That's the way they're promoting it. Okay, on the front here, we have our optical drives, so our DVD ROM drive and our CDRW drive. We have the Dell OptiPlex XE moniker on the front here, the model information. And again, this is new for me. I've never seen XE model. I've always seen a numerical value for that particular area there. So interesting to see the OptiPlex XE. We have a power button here. We have 3 ports in the front here, this behind this little rubber kind of grommet, 2 USB ports, and it looks like this button or this area here is for an external power button. And I'm not exactly 100% sure what that is. That was on Dell's website on this particular model. So if you know what that is, please let me know down in the comments. But it's just basically 2 pins in a little port. You stick something in there to power it, no doubt. Okay, and on the front here, we have additional cooling. We have quite a bit of cooling, actually. So my belief or my understanding for the Dell OptiPlex systems is that these were purpose-built for business environments. So again, you're going to see a little more ventilation. You're going to see a little more robust chassis, things like that. And then we have the N series sticker here, and then the Intel Core Duo 2 inside. So on the bottom here, we just have the regulatory information here. So nothing too fancy. And then we'll flip around the back here. More ports. We know how much we love ports on the channel. Okay. So on the back here, we have additional, what looks like expansion. We have 4 low profile expansion capability here. We have what looks like a spot for ventilation or something else here. And again, this is our power supply. And I believe this is a 300 watt power supply unit that's in this system. So here we have a COM port. We have a display port. So you could have display port to HDMI, display port to VGA, etc. So it's really handy to have. And this system, by the looks of things, has 2 built-in Ethernet ports, which is really, really handy to have dual Ethernet connectivity on a system like this. We have 4 USB ports, additional USB here as well. We have another COM port and an SVGA port as well built onto the motherboard, which is great. So having onboard graphics with the external ability to have the display port if required. Then we have 2 PS2 ports. So nice having the USB, but it's also great having the legacy ports there as well. And then here, of course, we have two audio ports, one for the audio out and a dual purpose port for your microphone, etc. And here is the power cord connector. All right, on the other side here, we have what looks like a handle that allows you to open up the side of the case. So look, a little lever here that you pull up and we allow us to open up the case. So we'll do that right now. May as well do that since we're here. And I'm going to get this all swapped around so we have a much better view of inside the system. Okay, and here's the inside of the system itself. And I mean, overall, it looks pretty clean in here, considering even if it was used in a business environment, that it could be as clean as it is. Yes, there's some dust in here and some, dust bunnies that aren't invited to the party. But in a full restoration, if we decide to keep this system, we can definitely get that all cleaned up. Okay, so looking at the system itself, we have what looks like the CPU heatsink and fan assembly here that goes right out the back here. And again, keeping it kind of to that area, which is nice. I mean, Dell's definitely experimented in many multi form factors, the BTX form factor, and of course ATX. But having this particular model is interesting in a space-saving design. And then over here we have our optical drive. Underneath, it looks like there's a bent or broken hard drive caddy that's in here. There's no hard disk in here. And then we have what looks like SATA connectivity and okay wire management. Everything's kind of bundled up here. Looks like we have a stick of RAM populated here that was left inside the system. And I can't get a good reading on it right now, but it looks like DDR3 memory. I'll have to take a look at that in a minute when we try to fire it up and see if we need to put some contact cleaner in there or not. Then we have the chipset here, looks pretty good. We have our CR2032 battery, pretty standard. Capacitors look all good here based on what it is. And again, Dell really worked to improve these systems, and especially the business class systems. And here we have PCI Express 1X, and then we have PCI. Then we have another PCI, but then we have this little expansion on the PCI. And if you saw in one of my last videos, I was kind of confused as to what this port was. This is Dell's proprietary connector for putting in a riser card in case you wanted to put full height cards in a particular computer. Not this case because it wouldn't support it, but it would allow you to put this motherboard in a different type of case. So they could use the same motherboard in a different case, not have to change out the design, put a riser card in, and bam, you're off to the races. So that's interesting to see in here. And then another option here is a PCIe 16 lane here that's here. But also, if you see, it has another, what looks like a PCI 1 on the end of it. But when I looked up online again, it does say that this particular port here does allow you to have another riser card. So you could have a PCIe 16 riser card to benefit from that functionality, or utilize the PCI, regular PCI. So interesting, again, to have all that there. And then you have all your built-on ports here. I mean, pretty standard. I mean, once you get past this area, everything else is pretty standard, pretty compact. We have our power supply here, and by the looks of things, it's pretty proprietary to this case. Okay, so we saw the inside of the case. Everything looks okay. Nothing looks like it shouldn't work. So I'm going to get this swapped around, get a computer, monitor, mouse, keyboard on the desk, and we'll see if we can get this system fired up. Let's go. Okay, and we're back, and we have the system all ready to go here. So I'm going to hit the power button and see what happens. Let's see if the system, number one, fires up. I love that it has the LEDs in the front. There we go. We have post. Intel Matrix Storage Manager. Okay, so drive 0 not found, drive 2 not found, alert, failed to detect one or more drives during post. Press the F1 key to continue, F2 to run the setup utility. So I don't know if this had RAID drives or it was rated in some sort. Let's just take a look at the F2 for the system utility. And we'll take a run in here. Oh, there we go. We have a nice GUI here for us. So here we go. We have our system board information. So it is showing 1 gigabyte of RAM in a single channel of DDR3 with the ability to add 3 more slots. So definitely giving you lots of expandability there if required. Now here is the CPU information. We have an Intel Core 2 Duo E7400 at 2.8 gigahertz. So we have our speed there. We have 3 meg of level 2 cache. Yeah, it's a pretty nice CPU there. Really, really nice to have that. Plus, it's not detecting any sort of anything in the slots right now. But yeah, it's what a neat BIOS to be able to detect all that and show it on screen. Date and time. Okay, well, it is showing the correct date and time, which is also wonderful. So the fact that it's holding a charge is really good, that coin cell battery. And the boot sequence, pretty straightforward. So onboard USB floppy drive or USB CD-ROM drive. So it tells you about the boot sequence. So drives itself, I mean, pretty standard stuff there for what we want to do. Under performance, multi-core support, so you can go ahead and tweak all the different settings. Virtualization support, same thing. Security, power management, maintenance, and system logs. Yeah, so I think it's pretty straightforward right now. We have system number one, again, thrown to e-waste. It is fully functional. You know, being I don't know if it's a business class PC that they just got rid of their stock or what have you, but already this is screaming some potential. I mean, it looks pretty much complete outside of a hard disk and some additional memory. And I mean, we have the PCI Express lane in there for expansion card for, you know, potential external or sorry, dedicated graphics. I think it's pretty cool. All right, so one thing I'm going to do is pop in the Knoppix CD and see if we can get the live environment going and see if we can actually get an operating system running on the computer, make sure it's stable enough to do that. And then we can actually say if the system is good to go or not. So hit exit there and let the system reboot into Knoppix. Okay, and we're back, and I have a bit of an update. This is still system number one. I've tried out, I can't get Knoppix to boot on this system. Comes up and says to boot. I hit enter to boot, and then comes up with a bunch of information, and then freezes. Just goes to a black screen just like this. Everything is locked up on the computer. Numlock key's not working. Nothing's responsive. So I tried a different stick of memory. This is the memory that was in it. I have a couple of these sticks here, so I tried it out. I tried the dual channel, not that the system requirements require that, but I did try dual channel. I tried a couple different sticks of memory and it didn't work. And then so I swapped out the actual optical drive and see if that would work. And I started getting a little further, but I think that's just coincidence. It didn't go any further past the freezing point. So I don't know if it's trying to initiate graphics or some sort of drivers on the system to be able to load, but this could be an indication there could be an issue with this computer, possibly. So it'd be interesting if I use external graphics potentially to boot with Knoppix and a couple other things. Yes, there's things I could try to get this going, but with 3 other systems behind, kind of waiting, I don't know if this constitutes as a failure or not. Definitely gives me pause. I definitely want to mark this system for additional testing before doing anything with it. Okay. So system number one is kind of working. I mean, we can get it posting. It will boot off the CD, no problem. It is responsive every single time before I try to load Knoppix. So I don't know if Knoppix is the problem or not, or that distro that I have, version 9.1, with the hardware that's in this computer. We'll find out very shortly because we're going to load up system number two. And if it does post and I have the exact same behavior, it's very possible it's the operating system not liking this hardware configuration. Okay. Now that's system number one. We give it a half thumbs up, I guess. Let's move on to system number two. Here we go. Okay, here we are back on the bench, and we have system number two, an identical system. Fancy that when you have 4 similar systems. We have the OptiPlex XE. I mean, I'm not going to go over every single component on the system because they are 4 identical systems. But one thing most notably, we are missing an optical drive. So we'll have to get one just to test. And here's the bottom of the system again. We'll look at the back at all the different ports. And again, it's the exact same system having the dual Ethernet functionality. Again, all the USB ports. And this USB port I kind of skipped over earlier. I didn't mean to. It is a powered USB port. According to the manual, it says it's a 24-volt powered USB port. So if you know what this is, or you know what use they would have been used for, please leave a comment down below and let me know. First time I've seen really that sort of configuration before. I'm pretty sure it's common, uncommon, not sure, but again, let me know in the comments. Display port, again, very handy to have, and our power supply. Okay, so we're going to pop open the side here again. So it's just this little lever. I like this access design. Pretty straightforward to be able to get into the computer itself, and makes it quite handy to work on. So let's get the camera all adjusted here so we can see inside again. Okay, we're back. And the system is all on the bench again. So pretty straightforward. I mean, nothing here is out of the ordinary of what we didn't see already. We have our PCI Express 1 here. We have our PCI and our PCI with the optional expansion card here to allow you to have a riser card. Same thing with the PCI E16 lane here with the additional area here to be able to put that card in. We also have the CPU here. It's all intact by the looks of things, our battery, all of our ports. It is missing the optical, but you can see this time the area where the hard disk would be mounted. So it's nice having that still there so you can actually put another drive in, because without this plastic kind of enclosure, it's much more difficult to be able to do that. And then we have our power supply. So before we go any further, I am going to pop in a stick of memory there just because it's much easier to do while we're together here. So again, I'm just using one of those sticks of RAM that I have, the DDR3 memory. And again, it's dual channel memory that I have, but I don't think it requires the dual channel configuration for it to function. So there we are. We have that in there. We're good to go. Let's get this all flipped around and see if system number 2 will power up. Okay, we're all set back up on the bench here, and we have our system number 2. This time I just threw an optical drive there, and I have Knoppix in here as well, just to see when we go to test that out. Let's turn the power on and see if we have post number 2 or not. Oh, look at that, instant. Number 2 is posting as well. It's fantastic. Okay, standard run-of-the-mill stuff here. So we do have our drives not being detected because we have them activated in the BIOS utility. We're going to run in real quick just to see, make sure that's stable and that's working. So we do have our mouse interface showing here. Under system board, we are showing the same CPU. So we have an Intel Core 2 Duo CPU E7400 running at 2.8 gigahertz, and that has the 3 megabytes of level 2 cache. We have our 1 gig of memory installed. That's our single channel DDR3 stick that we have in there. We have additional system information, et cetera, et cetera. So everything's pretty straightforward there. It's not showing anything in the lot there. And let's see if the system date and time is holding, and it is. Okay, so this is looking all good. We have a posting working system, and all I did was stick in that stick of memory and connect this optical drive. So let's go ahead and hit exit and see if the system will boot into Knoppix. Okay, so we're going to F1 to continue. No boot device available. All right, let's see. I'm going to eject that and put it back in. And we'll hit F1 to try to reboot. I'm going to go back into setup just to see what the boot order is, or if we have the drive set up correctly here. All right, so we're just going to do what the other system had. Do a reboot here and see if we're able to boot off of the CD. Yep, okay, detected this time, that's good. We'll enter and see if it loads Knoppix this time. So we got this far last time, but then it shows some running on the screen, then disappears. And this time it's not showing any writing on the screen. And the computer is locked up. Normally the light, the unlock key will go on and off here, and it's not doing that. So my feeling is that there's some hardware or something that Knoppix is not liking for this. I'm going to try a different video card just to see if we can get going on here. I'm going to grab a PCI video card or a PCIe video card, just something I can find at the top of the pile, just to see if it is the video card that's potentially causing this issue, because everything else that we have in the system is basically disconnected. It's just that memory. I don't know if the RAM would be causing this problem. I mean, I can try a different stick of DDR3 memory. Maybe that'll work. Okay, give me a few moments to see what happens here. Okay, and we're back, and I did a bunch more work again because I just wasn't convinced that 2 systems back to back couldn't run the live version of Knoppix. I just had to know what was causing the issue. So I tried a different video card. This is a PCI video card, the S3 Virge DX that I have here. And I know it's a full height card, but the back comes off the back of the system, no problem. So I popped that in. Sure enough, I got a little further this time where I could see more graphics. But again, I think that's just fluke by the point at which it freezes. So I went, all right, well, if it's not this, it's got to be the RAM, or something else is just not compatible with this. But everything I read online says it should be. So I went, all right, well, I dug through my pile of RAM here, and I found another stick of DDR3 memory. Because remember, I was using this memory before. So I popped in another stick of memory, which I have in there now, and let's fire up the system. And sure enough, we got past the error point, and now it's starting to load the operating system. So again, it just goes to show that just a little bit of troubleshooting. I don't know if you're like me, but if you're watching the channel, you probably are in some sort, that you just can't let things just not work. And I'm always trying to troubleshoot and get things going. And this is one of those things that it just wasn't making sense to me. And one system's okay, but two systems back to back, that would have set the stage for the remaining two systems. And this is just proving that this system is functional. And I would dare say that the first system is also functional. Okay, let's see what loads up here. And the system was running fairly quietly earlier, but now that fan is just going on that Core 2 processor. Yeah, and I have my mouse cursor. And yeah, I would say this is working pretty well. I don't see an issue here. I'm just loading up a bunch of stuff as we go, and it seems to be handling it no problem. Yeah, I would say that this is a successful test. I mean, we have system number 2 on the bench now working with Knoppix running, and again, all because of the troubleshooting and persistence that got us here. All right, so we have system number 2 up and running. Let's see if we can get system number 3. And here we are with system number 3. Deja vu, anyone? Yeah, another little great looking Dell or OptiPlex XE N series desktop computer. And you know what? It's in great shape again. Fairly dirty. All these systems are really dirty. But again, this one here is missing the optical drive as well, which we knew. The front here also is missing that kind of grommet that goes over the front here. So it's exposing the 2 USB ports there as well. Nothing very fancy on the side of the system. And again, you can stand it up, other than the rubber grommets, as I was talking about earlier, that allows you to stand the system upright. And along the back here, we have the same cast of characters in terms of ports. I mean, pretty straightforward. Again, another dual Ethernet system, display port, 6 USB ports that we have on this computer, plus the one powered one, and then 2 COM ports, which is always handy, VGA, 2 PS2, and 2 audio. Let's do a vertical view of this tower and see, or this desktop, I should say, and see what's inside. And here we are. It seems like we truly have triplets so far. I mean, we have system number 3 on the bench, and everything's looking fairly identical. This system as well is missing the memory, so we don't have any memory installed. Optical drive, which would be here, is gone. We do have the hard disk that would go here. One thing I just noticed is that there's a fan right here next to where the hard disk would go. So pretty cool that it has cooling in the area. Very small form factor fan, but nonetheless cooling in the area where the hard disk would go. Being a business environment, happen to be reliable, specifically if you're running rated drives, very nice to have that feature there. Okay, and again, everything else looks the same. We have the PCI Express 1 and 16 lanes. We have 2 PCI with our riser card capabilities here, our back ports here. I check out a few things when I'm just kind of quickly going over before I power them up. Like I look at the capacitors, see if there's anything leaking, see anything bulging, at first glance. Do the chipsets actually have the heat sinks on them? Because I know some of these systems, specifically if they're thrown to e-waste, they will take parts off them if they needed them for something else. And I always want to make sure that the CPU cooling kind of area is all set up correctly. And everything's looking pretty darn good here. So again, what we're going to do, we're going to take that stick of RAM that I had in the other system, pop it in this one because we know it works. And yeah, we'll just pop that in there. Okay, all ready to go. Let's get this fired up on the bench. Okay, here we are with system number 3. I'm just going to pop in this SATA drive here, which has Knoppix in it, just to make sure that we have something to boot to. And yeah, SATA is always fun to line up. And there we go. Let's make sure I got it lined up, because those little plastic clips can definitely break inside the SATA connector. Okay, we have that all connected. Let's power up and see if we get post and see if we can boot. We have post number 3. Just awesome. Okay, so let's see what is in this system for all the configuration. Hit F2. We'll go into the setup utility. And again, the nice same GUI that we've been seeing all along. So our board So we have the Core 2 Duo E7400 2.8 gigahertz with 3 meg cache, and our RAM is showing as our 1 gigabyte stick of RAM, and everything is also looking good there. Date and time, again, holding the date and time, no problem. Boot sequence, those are selected this time, so we should be able to boot to the CD-ROM drive. Okay. You know what? I don't go through these every single time because these are identical systems. So we're able to go through these fairly quickly because they are. I'm just basically looking for, when I go into the BIOS, to make sure that there's no sort of, bad issues with the graphics card, any sort of artifacts on the screen, to make sure everything's being detected correctly. We're not having a bunch of garbage characters. And also we're testing out the system a little bit by doing this. Okay, so I'm gonna hit exit there and we're going to boot into Knoppix, hopefully. Let's see what happens. So I have Knoppix in the drive, hit F1 to continue, and it should automatically boot to, or boot using the CD-ROM drive here. No boot device available. All right, so it's giving us some hard time here. I'm going to reboot here. The good old Control-Delete is not functioning. It's pretty much locked up. All right, let's hold the power button there. And we'll power it back on. Now, it did give me a boot options in the top there, but I'd rather see if we can go through it through this way. Okay, that time it detected the drive. Now, it is possible that because Dell's, when you first plug them in, it does do that kind of check over the system first and then kind of power on and off. At least it gives me that impression it does. Now, I put in on camera, as you see, I put in the optical drive after it had done that sequence. The power is already connected. So it's possible it needed the reboot for it to recognize that there was a drive attached. Okay, so it's detecting the hardware here, going through the system setup for Knoppix. Now, I don't know about you, but I find this computer slightly snappier than the other system. And I'm not sure why that would be. We're using the same memory, it's the same system configuration and the same disk and drive, but I just found that the desktop preferences opened up fairly quickly. I just found it to be open a little quicker, but it could just be me. Yeah, this stuff is opening up around the same speed, I suppose, so maybe it was just me. Let me know in the comments if it was me or not. Okay, I would say this is a successful test. I always like to go through this for a few moments just to kind of poke around, just to make sure that everything's kind of functioning here and that nothing crashes while I'm loading up a bunch of things. But it does seem that it is loading up no problem now. So, I mean, system number 3 on the bench, working just fine. Okay, I think it's time for system number 4. Let's do a quick overview and see if we can get that system posting. Let's go. Welcome back, and here we are with system number 4. And again, quadruplets this time. We have Dell OptiPlex XE, and I just looked, and these still have the protective sticker on the front of them that kind of protects the name there. Look at that. I mean, yeah, I mean, pretty decent shape, I would say. This has a little bit of a scuff mark on the top of it. Missing optical drive. This time it does have the rubber grommet that covers up the, protects the front ports there. Basically, in certain business environments, you want to have some of that covered up. Lots of dirt inside the ventilation here, but that's okay. Our N series and our Core 2 Duo sticker on the front, our case badges. Swap around the back here and look at all of our beautiful ports. Oh, this time we have a little surprise, I think. So it looks like we have an Ethernet to serial adapter here that would have been used for some sort of communication at the time. I don't have my screwdriver handy. Can I get that off easily enough? Let's see if I can do that without pulling anything. There we go. Yeah. So there's the serial to Ethernet adapter that allows you to do different telnet communications and things like that. But yeah, it's cool to have that. It gets added to the collection, I suppose. Okay, and we have our dual Ethernet here, a bunch of different ports that we talked about already, so we won't go down that path again, even though I love talking about them. All right, I'm going to open up the case and see what is inside. Here we are with system number 4 on the bench. So we have our CPU here. I mean, it's pretty much the same, right? Surprise. They're quadruplets. I mean, they're 4 identical systems. But again, I'm looking for any sort of damage, any capacitors, any sort of bulging, any loose components, with something flopping around here at some point. But yeah, I mean, we have our standard ports that we had, our array of ports that our expansion capability that we have on the board. Nothing too fancy there. I just realized I did not take out my stick of memory in there, so I do have another stick of RAM we can pop in that is the DDR3. So we have that installed. But yeah, I mean, again, just having the caddy here, which is really good for putting in additional drives. The fan cooling here for the hard disk area. Optical drives missing, but that's not a big deal. And everything looks pretty much intact. So yeah, I think we're good to fire this one up as well and see if see if this system we can get it going. Let's go. Okay, and we're back. I think we've done this before. We have system number 4 on the bench. It's all plugged in. This time I put the optical drive in first just to make sure that we didn't have that same issue. Let's power it up and see if we can get system number 4 posting. This will be 4 for 4. Let's see what happens. So far, so good. We have post. Look at that. 4, 4, 4. Different spelling, but 4 for 4. Okay. Let's go in F2 to run setup utility again. Just take a quick peek to make sure that we have our GUI, and we do with our mouse. Everything's looking pretty good. Let's click our system board. So it is Intel Core 2 Duo CPU, E7400 2.8 and 3 meg cache. That's great. We have 1 gig of, it says 2 gig of memory. Apparently that was a 2 gigabyte stick. I thought it was only a 1, so that's great. DDR3 memory, and everything is looking wonderfully. So it looks like this board could support 8 gigs of RAM, so that definitely gives a bunch of capability and options for here, specifically if we're able to utilize the PCIe express ports here. So I think it's pretty darn good. Let's check the date and time. That seems to be holding just fine. And I'm just going to make sure that we turn on our boot sequence there. Perfect. Hitting exit to restart and see if we're able to get into Knoppix 9.1. And here we are loading into the Knoppix desktop. So everything's working well so far. It did show the 2 gigs of RAM and the dual core processor. And yeah, I mean, this is system 444, and I'm really excited to see it working. Let's make sure that everything kind of just loads up again, and just want to make sure it's stable enough to call it a win for sure. And I'm just loading up the usual suspects here, just some applications I had running earlier. Yeah, I would say that this is a successful boot. I mean, we have the system posting. We were able to get Knoppix up and running in here. And I mean, again, this is system number 4. Okay, all that said, let's get the bench all cleaned up here, and let's just do a summary of what we have. Let's go. And we're back, all set up back on the bench with our 4 beautiful looking OptiPlex XE systems, the N series from Dell. And you know what? All 4 systems posted no problem. All we needed was some memory installed. May I add the right memory in order for it to be able to boot Knoppix for us. And we were able to get it installed, or running, I should say, no problem. And yeah, I'm really excited that we have these now, to be honest with you, because I mean, at first, like I said, I was offered the systems. I didn't think anything of it. I said, yeah, you know, $10, I'll take them and see if they work. But I mean, they're on the edge of retro for me, having a Core 2 Duo. Yes, they're old enough, but I mean, these systems can run Windows 10, arguably 11 today, depending on the configuration. And, you know, the fact we can put them up to 8 gigs of RAM, the 2.8 gigahertz processor that we have in there, definitely gives a lot of opportunity for these systems to be refurbished, reused, and you know, for different environments. And you know what? Let me know down in the comments what you would do with these systems. I mean, the thing that interests me most about these computers was the N series, as I mentioned earlier, and the OptiPlex XE being a different type of Optiplex I have not been around or exposed to before. So definitely cool to be able to see what Dell was making back at that time. Specifically, these systems are extremely robust, built extremely well, and they have a lot of redundancies built in with the built-on RAID controller, the fan around where the hard drives would go. I think that's just genius, being able to cool your hard disk down. And, you know, obviously this is before SSD really becoming mainstream. I'm going to leave it basically at that. I mean, they're great looking systems, definitely worthy cleaning up. All 4 posted. We're 4 for 4 on the retro recall. That said, if you liked today's video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow. Hit the notification button, change it to all. You'll be notified of new content such as this. Please leave a comment down below. I respond to every one of the comments. I want to hear from you what you think we should do with these computers. Is it something that you had before? Let me know your stories. I love reading all of them, love every one of them, and love the interaction on the channel. Always making new content. We'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.